Hello everyone, welcome to the live stream today regarding my most recent video about the meaning of life, part 1. Hello, nice to see all of you today. It is very nice. If you're brand new here, welcome. If you've seen some of these streams before, you know how it goes. I make a video and then we discuss it. And that's what we've been doing for, I guess, a few months now. I've been doing it. So yeah, nice to see all of you. I'm glad you all could make it. I see some very familiar people here, so I'm very glad you could join and be here. So this is mostly going to be an open discussion. If you have any questions regarding pretty much anything regarding the meaning of life video that I posted, or just any kind of question in general regarding meaning of life and death and what it means to be alive and any sort of questions like that. So I want to thank you all for coming. I want to thank you all for checking out my video on that, because it was such an amazing video to put together and share this information with everyone, because this is a very important topic that all of us think about. We all think about what happens after we die, why we exist, is there a God, is there a higher power? We all think about these things at one point or another, because it's all part of who we are. Just like we all require food and water, we all think about our own death and think about our own life and process through this world and what our purpose is and why we are here. So we all think about these things. So that's why I wanted to cover this topic, but I couldn't do it in one part. So I had to divide it. So that's why there's 2 parts. And the first part primarily discusses why we humans exist. What is the whole reason behind it? In addition to the collective unconscious and how we are all connected, how we are all one, and how there's a difference between this lower life form such as us and then something that's much higher than us that we cannot quite understand or grasp. So that's what I wanted to cover, and I think I did a very great job of that. So I'm very thankful for your support and sharing this information. Let's try to reach as many people as possible with this information, because it is, I would say, it's very life-changing, knowing certain information that we've been blinded by religion, blinded by what it means to be alive, what we have to do in order to please God or go to heaven or hell or whatever else you believe. It's a very black and white scenario, and that's just not how the real world is. So feel free to ask any questions you'd like. I already see a question here. I see someone here. Did you advertise this stream publicly? Yes, it was. I did make announcements publicly about it, so I'm glad you all could make it. If you don't receive any of my notifications or anything like that, then I do apologize. I really can't control that, because that's in Facebook, Twitter, and whatever else, YouTube's hands regarding that. Okay, so we have a question here from Coconut Walrus. As you ask many questions, which is very good. It's very good to ask these questions, so I'm glad we can have this discussion. So I'm going to get this question on screen. I can do this pretty easily now. Okay, what do you think the origin of the human ego is? Where did it come from? How did we develop our ego? This is such a good question. Where did it begin? Well, that's not an answer any of us can really understand the reasons why. Ultimately, I think the human ego exists primarily for the reason of, well, we have to differentiate ego between our consciousness at a deeper level. For you see, pretty much the collective unconscious is a collection of all our conscious minds. That is where we are all together. That is where we are all one. And with that, branched off into this human experience that we have, that is the ego. So probably a good way of putting it is, let's use a technical example with computers. You have a mainframe. You have a main computer that is the centralized computer that receives all the information. It knows all, it has all the information collected, and it's just all there. It's, you know, the location of it is, it's only in one location, essentially, is what it is. And then what you have from there is you have a lot of other computers that are branched off from that in like a wireless network. You could have millions of miles away a computer, but pretty much that secondary computer or all the other computers around it are doing whatever it needs to do individually. It's perhaps they all have a different task, perhaps they all have different goals that they have to do, but they all report back to that central computer. That is like where the main software is run, essentially. And that's essentially how humans are. We report back to like this main hub, if you will, and that would be the collective unconscious. And we all branch off from that, and that's what creates this ego, the human ego. And that's what gives us our uniqueness and individuality, to diversify this collective unconscious, which is just one thing. So in order to diversify it, you have to make it so each person thinks they are special, and each person has their own unique gifts and skills and abilities. So that is my take on that. Okay. So, let's see what we have here. Okay. Okay, we have a question here from Raymond. Hello, Raymond. I'm not sure how... Okay, good. Your question can actually fit. Okay, since we are all individual parts that make up a whole, do you think this higher power intentionally made our lives diverse, even though some lives must experience more suffering trauma than others? Yes, indeed. Every person here on this planet, in this experience that we're having, is for a very specific purpose. Regardless of if you've suffered greatly, like if you live in a place that is very poor quality and you don't have good quality food or water and air, there's a reason for that. I mean, you may not have necessarily consciously chose that existence that you have, but there is learning and growth and observation that needs to be done within that. So going beyond just what is good and bad, you know, what is good and what is bad, it doesn't really matter, because that's all from our own perspective. What I may see as good, you could think is bad, or what you think is good, I could think is bad. So ideally, it's not about making everyone's lives happy, it's just about this diverse set of lives, from the very popular, successful people to the very miserable, lonely people, and everything else in between, going all around, because it has to encompass everything. Everything has to be included, so there is no exception to that. Okay. And, very relatedly, from Raymond as well, if so, do you think this higher power is suffering with us? I wouldn't really call it suffering, because what one person's suffering could be another's enjoyment. So you really can't, it's hard to say what suffering and what negativity would it be, like the negative aspects, suffering, or positivity and enjoyment. So I wouldn't say it's really suffering as much as it is, I have to understand. I'm curious. It's curiosity. Okay. We have another question here from RTT1961. Your thesis is that the universe becomes conscious of itself via human input. Yes, I guess that's a good way of putting it. The universe, because the universe would you consider then the universe something that is living and something that can observe people and is a matter that has a conscious, pretty much? So can the universe become conscious? I don't know the answer to that question. I think it's much deeper than just one universe. It's multiple universes nested into one another that goes deeper and deeper. So yeah, I don't know about that. Okay, here this one really isn't a question, but it is a good thing to mention because it goes right along with what we're talking about here. I don't think there is a higher power, no evidence for a spirit world at all. Indeed, what's the okay, so there are a lot of people who don't believe that there is a God or a higher power. You know, some people may be atheists, but they may also be open to other ideas. Sometimes a lot of these people, like, they're very scientific atheist people. I would say that just because there may be no evidence, that's essentially what humans are trying to understand. They're trying to understand what is beyond the physical. Because right now, all we do is observe the physical. We don't know anything else that's non-physical. There are plenty of people, including myself, who have experienced the non-physical. So while there may not be a scientific explanation for that, to me, I can see what an answer could be. So while science will discredit anything such as that, such as medicine, for example, medication is a very good way to describe the physical and non-physical. In the Western medicine here, you know, in the United States, it's all about the physical symptoms, the physical aspects. It has nothing to do with the spiritual self of you. If you're struggling with something that's much deeper than just your physical body and your brain. So there could be some kind of phenomenon that is going on spiritually around you and your environment, or something with you specifically that is being targeted that could be labeled as a mental illness or some kind of physical condition. Anything that you repress essentially in your mind becomes a physical ailment. So if you're always bottling something up, let's say there's some kind of pain that you keep having, like some kind of situation that you're always in, and you just get so perhaps anxious, perhaps you get really upset and angry, and you just hold it in. You just breathe it into you. That could essentially manifest as physical symptoms within your physical body. So it could start as a tumor. You could get cancer as a result of that. And it's like, well, we don't know how you got this cancer. They can treat the cancer in many, many ways, but ultimately, you're always going to have it until you can address that main issue that you have. Okay. Now, I do apologize if I can't answer all of your questions. There are a decent amount of questions here, so I'm very sorry if I do not get to yours, but I try to look at them all. Okay. Okay, this is a very good question from Mercedes. Is it possible to forgive others wrong even if it hurts? So essentially what you're saying is if someone wronged you, if someone hurt you really bad. I think I even posted an article about this, made a video about it regarding forgiveness or something along those lines. I couldn't tell you what the video is off the top of my head, but you can forgive people who have wronged you, who have hurt you, who have abused you. And that's essentially how you could surpass some of that abuse. Now, a lot of people, when they've been abused, they may project that abuse onto themselves or onto other people. So being able to forgive someone else that hurt you will be able to overcome that step. So it's all about overcoming. And that's what all this information is about. It's about observing yourself and learning and seeing what needs to be worked on, and then actually making the steps to accomplish that. Okay. Again, this one's not really a question, but Coconut Walrus says, it's so hard to imagine the scale of the universe considering how minuscule we are. Indeed, we are so tiny in the grand scheme of things. We are so tiny compared to the country that we live in. We are so tiny compared to the world that we live in. We are so tiny compared to the galaxy that we live in and the universe. And then from there, other universes and everything that's much greater. So we're this little tiny thing in this very huge, vast world. Okay. Another question here from Raymond. Okay. If someone believes in reincarnation yet fears death, will the soul still transfer into the collective unconscious or stay in the physical domain until they overcome that fear? Interesting. I was going to mention reincarnation in this stream too. So reincarnation could mean something different for everyone. And essentially how I've observed it is, if the collective unconscious is this, essentially this hub of consciousness, after we die, we go to this collective unconscious. It's not just that we go, we're always connected to it, even in our physical bodies, we can access it. So reincarnation could be essentially people reconnecting with consciousness from the collective unconscious that had lived at one other point, just accessing that memory. It's like accessing a folder on your computer from many years ago. It's like, oh yeah, I remember that. So you're accessing this information that is in the collective unconscious with your conscious mind, maybe, or maybe what you want to do is you're meditate and relax and go to your subconscious mind is often a lot of times what it is. And you access this memory in the collective unconscious that is not necessarily your memory, but it seems like your memory because it is part of you. It is you. So that could be one way of viewing it. Or it could also be that whatever consciousness that existed in the collective unconscious would essentially come into another physical existence and have some sort of connection based on a previous life. I think both could be true. I'm more inclined to believe the, well, both. Honestly, I think both can be a very good possibility. But regarding your question, if someone believes in reincarnation yet fears death, well, the thing is, we pretty much all fear our own death, because even if you wish to end your life, or you wish for a death to come because you're suffering with something, that could be a form of release. Some people they believe that, and it's a very tragic death. But a lot of people may end up fearing death. They fear getting older. They fear the complications that may arise with their health as they get older. So if you fear death, I think that when you fear death and you die, you are rejecting this collective unconscious, and you could manifest as what we call like a spirit or a ghost or something along those lines. And it's when those issues have been settled is when you kind of go back to the collective unconscious. So if you physically die, you wouldn't be of this physical world anymore. That your physical body will die. So there is no more physical aspect of you. But you will not be part of the collective unconscious. You will be in that non-physical realm that we exist in both the physical and non-physical, but you may be able to manifest in some way in the physical via, as I mentioned, like spirits and ghosts and some kind of phenomena like that. Okay, you think that many suppressed feelings and emotions can result in depression. Yes, I guess that was a little bit out of the main theme, but it's also very connected as well, because first of all, everything is connected in some way. I understand this is a bit different than what we're talking about here, but the main thing is when you suppress something, you're physically, it can manifest in some physical way. So it could be something that you can resolve via understanding these deeper rooted problems. And that's the thing. That's something that all of us deal with. And that is the part, here's where it's connected. Okay, I just figured it out. Here's how it's connected. Because suppressing is denying, and denying is what this whole video was mostly about. When you deny life, when you deny death, that is essentially the theme of our universe. We strive for everlasting life and everlasting beauty and just being youthful, and the fear of death. We don't want to die. We want immortality. That is, in a way, this suppression to deny the inevitable. So it is very much connected. Perhaps not the way that I was talking with this other person about it, but it was along the same lines, because when you can accept these things, you won't be suppressing anymore. Okay, there are quite a bit here, so again, I do apologize if I do not get to them all. Okay. Now this one is a bit long, so I'm sorry if it doesn't all fit. Yeah, it is pretty long. But I'll just read it as we go along, and yeah, it almost fits. Humans are working again. Okay, this is Phantasmos the Data. Humans are working against the collective unconscious by making themselves each day more or less diverse and becoming the same and without any self. But you said everything is predetermined. Does it work against itself? Okay, so yes, that is an interesting question. How can I shorten this so you can see it? But anyway, let's just kind of leave it there. So the thing is, unity. We are all striving for unity. That is the rule of this universe, essentially. And that is what is predetermined. So it's not really working against, it's working towards. Because we are working towards this inevitable goal of unification. It's about unification. You start off very diverse and you get to the point where it is all similar. It is all the same. To analyze what it is very diverse and how it gets to all the same. That is what the goal is. So hopefully that could answer that. Hello, everyone. Let's see. We have some new people joining us. Joanne, thank you for joining. Okay, now I do see a lot from Coconut Walrus. Yeah, I do apologize if I can't get to them all. I'm trying to keep track of some of these here. Okay. Okay. Oh, okay. I think a lot of this could be just talking amongst yourself, which is good. You want to have a discussion amongst yourself. You want to, if there's disagreements, that's a good thing, because that's how you work. That's how you can learn and work together. So yeah. Okay. So another question here from RTT 1961. Is the merging of the individual with the collective your take on what amounts to nirvana or Satori? I believe that is, I don't know how to pronounce that, or whatever you want to call enlightenment. Interesting. Honestly, I really don't think there is such a thing as enlightenment. That's something that we have defined to describe something that we understand deeper than most people do. And the thing is, we all have some kind of understanding about the world, about ourselves, that no one else does. So, honestly, I really don't look at it as like enlightenment or anything of that sort. Now, there are some people who have certain skills that others don't. So if you want to call being able to observe this collective unconscious and perhaps access the memories from it, and it's like access, again, I'm just going back to the technological example, because a lot of people can understand that one, because it does apply to life. And like one of the theories goes, we're just our whole universe is just a program inside someone's computer. You know, it all makes sense when you think about it in this way. It's like accessing a locked, encrypted folder on your computer. Some people can do it easily, like they know what the password is to access it, but some people don't. So, but you can do other things. The people who can't access it can do other things. So, yes, it's all a matter of perspective with enlightenment. Yeah. Okay. So Coconut Walrus says, the universe is about creation and destruction, and also creation from destruction. Yes, that is exactly true. We kill, we die, we are born, other animals are born. It's a cycle. Does death come first? Does being born come first? Birth come first? You know, and there's a cycle of you eat other living creatures. You survive, you learn, you grow, you reproduce, you have a baby. They do the same. It's a cycle. It just keeps going. Okay, got a question here from Rads Chowky. Okay, do you believe the reason every human has an idea of right and wrong to begin with is because we connected to the collective unconscious and have there before birth and after death? Right and wrong are simply concepts of the ego. There is no such thing as right and wrong with the collective unconscious or anything that is not of the ego. Because the ego is what determines what is right and what is wrong. And many religions are based on what is right and what is wrong. I mean, take Christianity, for example. You know, you have this one universal God, and you have to repent your sins to him, and you have to do good deeds in order to get to heaven. Who defines what is right? Who defines these good deeds? Is it God? Is this God who does that? But this God is something that's created by humans, because God wouldn't know what is right and what is wrong, because to God, there is no such thing as right and wrong. There is no such thing, because it's all about observation. So, again, what I think is right, you could think is wrong. What you think is wrong, what you think is right, I could think is wrong. So, yeah, it's all a matter of perspective. Okay, Raymond asks, there are people who believe in the existence of multiple gods, Greek mythology. However, do you think that even these gods are under the observation of this higher entity? That would actually be somewhat covered in part 2. So I'm going to hold you off there for now about multiple gods and observation of these nested universes and gods and everything. For the next part. The next part will be available in another week, or if you subscribe to my email newsletter, you will get it on Monday. So, yes, feel free to subscribe to my email newsletter on automasterdo.com/newsletter, and you can get the video on Monday. Or if you're a supporter on Patreon, a sponsor on YouTube, you could have already had it for like a week now, so you wouldn't have known. But yes, we would talk more about that during the live stream of that one, if you're confused at all about that. Okay. Again, if you're new here, hello, welcome to the stream. I'm trying to catch up with all of your comments. There are a lot, so I do apologize if I can't get to them all. There are a lot this time, because this is such a big topic. But I do very much thank you for sharing this information and getting the word out. That's so important. So thank you very much for coming here, and that we can have this conversation. Okay. Okay, let's see. I think this is a good one here. Morgan says, I believe that out of necessity there can only be one God. Sort of the same way that you can only have one captain in a team, one leader. Otherwise, there would be a conflict between them. Interesting. Let's say, it's kind of the same thing how there could be multiple gods, but Is it the God who makes the rules, is the question. See, I don't see God as making rules. God is simply an observer. That's all that God does. God does not make any rules. You don't live with God. You don't do anything with God. God is just out of our realm of existence that we can comprehend, and it just observes us. That's all that God does. God has no need to rule over anything. It's just about observing, seeing how perhaps this God was created. So that's one perspective on it, I guess you could say. And that does tie into our previous question about, about multiple gods. Okay, Luke D says, so our purpose is just to be born, reproduce, and die. Yes, essentially that is our purpose here on this in this world. That's, that seems so bleak, but that's essentially what we do. Now we change the world, we shape the world how we think we should do, have it. We have activist movements to fight for equal rights. We have people who lie and deceive, who become politicians and rise to the top. We have leaders of businesses who do the same. I mean, there's many rules that encompass this universe that depict a certain story. If you look back to ancient times up to now and what the future is heading towards. But ultimately, our core purpose is birth, reproduce, and die. To continue on the human species, to get to a point where humans essentially become their own god via technological means, via manipulation of DNA and the human genome to essentially genetically modify the human species. That is essentially what will happen at some point in the future. It's happened with plants, such as genetically modified organisms, GMOs, and humans are very much going to be getting to that point at some point down the line. That's not to say that humans won't exist. That's not to say that everyone will be a cyborg, human, and then what you could call in between a genetically modified human being. They're all different levels of what could be, and if you look around, there's a lot of hints that are going towards this as the future. Okay. All right. Again, I do apologize if I can't get to all your questions, and if you're new here, thank you for joining. Okay. Okay, Charles says, I think you were just talking about what I was just talking about, or maybe a little bit before. What you are saying sounds so much like a simulation hypothesis. They believe in a deistic God, not a theistic God. They believe God created the universe and is just passively watching it unfold. Ah, interesting. Yes, you could view it as such, because, well, a bigger question is, does this God, rather what we perceive as God, that's what we have to differentiate it here. Ooh, sorry about that. If something happened there, I saw something weird pop up. Did God create the universe? That's what we have to understand, or is it just observing the universe? And furthermore, what our definition of God is may not necessarily be what God truly is. So if let's just say here we are right here. If there's a God above us, a higher power, maybe there's a God that rules over that God. There's a God that rules over that God. Now that kind of talked a little bit about what I'm going to talk in the next video. I'm not going to go into too much detail than that, but just kind of think about that. Just kind of think about that for a little bit. All right, so, oh, sorry, I lost the question here. All right. All right. Is there a... Okay. Okay, here's something interesting here. I'm having a hard time understanding it, but something about Jesus. No matter what, Jesus created us and time to ask him, although he may be out of realm. Okay, so Brian asked this. Now, what I'm understanding is, so you're saying, I guess you have the Christian idea of Jesus creating us. You ask him for something, I guess, like, God, please help me from this, or give me this, or something, although he may be out of our realm. Well, the thing is, I'm not doubting that perhaps Jesus is a real person, or perhaps had some kind of significance to history in some way with people, absolutely. But what I am saying is that perhaps Jesus isn't necessarily God, or the Son of God, or anything related to what we perceive as God. That's essentially what it is. Okay, and again, a lot of questions, so I do apologize. Okay, here's a good question that goes right along with this as well. Okay, MZ Makeup, I believe that's correct, asks, okay, so you talk about God a lot. Do you believe in the devil? If so, what do you think its purpose is? Again, God, devil, we put these terms on something we think is good and bad. We think God is this higher power that's very good and positive and, all this good stuff. And then we think devil, very negative, sinning, hurting people, doing all these negative things to people. But again, it's all due to our own perspective. So, devil, we see as something very bad, very negative. And Crusher Kitty just said heaven, hell. Yes, exactly. It's all part of the human ego creating this illusion of good and bad. That's all that it is. There is no good and bad. Everything is out of our realm of understanding. We cannot understand what is good and what is bad because there is no such thing as good and bad. Our ego tells us what is good and bad. But what truly is good and bad is non-existent. There is no good and bad. And I think that's the hardest thing for many people to understand because people always want to do one or the other. Good and bad. So, yeah, it's a lot of people try to put a label on what is good and what is bad. So, yeah, it's when you can understand that and kind of move past that point of being able to understand, then it is a bit, it's kind of hard to wrap our head around because we don't understand it. So, and here's something again from MZ Makeup as well, and it kind of goes along with this. But people get diseases. Surely that's God doing bad by allowing diseases. Again, do you classify a disease as bad? It's just a different way of living, different way of expressing and experiencing life. If you experience life with a disability, that's one way of experiencing life. You can look at it very negatively and very bad, but that's only your perspective of it. Other people may treat their disability, whether it be a physical disability or a mental disability, or they have something else going on, they could treat that as a gift. Like, this is my gift. I may only have a limited amount of time to live even, but I will make every day count. I may be in a wheelchair for the rest of my life, but I am happy with who I am. That's what life is about. It's not about looking at something that's negative and focusing on that negative. Surely we can look at a disease and see how it's affecting people and say, gosh, that's horrible. That's really bad. Yes, indeed. We all know that, but the thing is, there is no good and bad with God. And that goes with a lot of people, like, if there was a God, why would he allow people to starve? Why would he allow crime? Why would he allow evil into the world? And again, it's all a matter of perspective. If you view something as evil, that's evil to you. There is no such thing as universal evil. There is no such thing that's universally bad. It's all about your perspective of it. Okay. Okay, here's something interesting by Bella Lover. Everything I'd perceived I once had experienced with no ego and no fears. I laughed so hard when I saw what the world was in the perspective. We are all one in so many ways, in so many deeply ways. So yes, essentially we are all one. You may dislike your enemy because they're the total opposite of you, but that's still a part of you. It's the part you may not like about yourself. You may become jealous of someone because they have something that you want. It's all a reflection of yourself. We look at people as a reflection of ourselves. That's why we may hate someone. That's why we may love someone. And that's why we may feel jealous or anger or any of the other emotions, because we see it as a reflection of ourselves in some way. Perhaps it's something we don't like. Perhaps it's something that we love. And everywhere in between. Okay. I see a lot of discussion here. I'm very thankful. Okay, now this is a bit off topic, but it's also related. Sulfuric acid asks, hello, Autumn. I'm not sure what the LYSM is, but okay. What is your advice on suicidal thoughts? Well, a lot of people may have suicidal thoughts to end their life, thinking that it's going to solve the problem that they have in this physical existence. When you have some sort of trouble in this physical life, we try to escape it in some way. We try to deny it instead of addressing it. And unfortunately, some people do commit suicide. I talk very briefly about this in my next video, so it may be a little bit more understanding there. And I can't really give you full advice here since again, everyone is unique. Everyone has different kinds of advice of what they would want. But essentially, we have to look at what suicide is. Suicide is essentially taking your physical life. And we've talked about the collective unconscious before. When you die in that way, due to a very negative experience because you're denying something, because you're rejecting, you essentially could continue to suffer after you physically die. Your non-physical existence may suffer, and we talked about spirits and ghosts and that sort of thing versus like more peaceful death, like I accept my death. With suicide, I don't really see it as accepting death as it is rejecting everything else in this physical existence, and that's like the last resort, unfortunately. It's a very sad thing when many people do that, especially when it's like the ultimate low point you can get with yourself. When you're very depressed, when you're very upset, that's the lowest you can pretty much go. So thank you for the question. Very good. LYSM, love you so much. Well, thank you. Thank you, sulfuric acid. I believe that's who asked it. Yes, sulfuric acid. Yes, thank you. Okay. Okay. I see people talking about different races, and I see that okay, here's a good question by Morgan. Morgan asks, hypothetically speaking, if God is the creator of the human race, couldn't he make for himself a body and take up a name? Wouldn't he long to have a relationship with his own creation? Well, here again, we kind of talked about, is the human race this God's creation? And furthermore, we are all part of God in some way. So wouldn't God be here observing us through ourselves? So God is us, we are God, and God is us. So essentially then, by that, God would already have a body, which is all of our physical bodies, all animals, all plants, all living life forms, all non-living life forms, everything in this universe that has matter. Everything. That is essentially what a God is, because God, if God created us, God is everything. You are so strong. Love you. Well, thank you, Kayla. Okay. Kelly, I'm so glad I caught your live stream. Thank you, Kelly. Okay. Okay, Crusher Kitty 1, this is a good thing to bring up as well. Again, I'm very thankful for all your questions here. If you have any other questions, please feel free to ask them, because I'll be going for about another 10 minutes. And I'm very thankful for all your support. And if you just now joined, thank you very much for joining the live stream. We're talking about the meaning of our existence, why we are here, and essentially, if there's a God, if a higher power, what happens after we die, things that all of us think about at one point or another. Because we all live, and we all die, and we all experience life. Okay, so Crusher Kitty 1 says, I don't believe in a God that punishes with bad things and rewards with good things. Very, very good, because that is a human concept. That is what humans do. You're a parent of a kid, and you punish them for bad things, and you reward them for good things, so they learn what is right and what is wrong. What does wrong and right have to do with it? Because wrong and right is created by humans. It doesn't exist in the way that we think it does. I read a long time ago that all joy is sacred and all suffering is sacred. That helps me through the hard times. That's a very good way of looking at it, and exactly the way that I view the world, because here's how the way I look at it. It's some people, I've made videos about overcoming trauma, overcoming abuse, and so many people say, I can never forgive someone who did me wrong. I can never forgive someone who hurt me and abused me. And the thing is, would you be the same person you are today if you had not experienced that? Ultimately, you're a strong person for having to deal with that, and you can use that to better yourself and become an even stronger person. It takes a very hard time to become a strong person. So all suffering is indeed sacred because it helps you become stronger. Any hard time in your life, you overcome it, you do better, and you're a strong person for overcoming it. Okay. We have a question here from Lucian Corvinus. Apologize if I'm saying your name wrong. As for suicide, what about in the realm of one choosing to die with dignity from having an illness? Interesting. Well, again, we have to consider what is a natural death and what is a forced death. A forced death would be someone murdering someone, whether it be deliberately or accidentally. Well, I guess it doesn't have to be accidentally. But again, all kind of death, it's all death that happens. And dying with dignity, I guess a natural cause. I mean, what could be a natural cause? I mean, in this day and age, a natural cause could be having cancer and dying. A natural cause could be getting hit by a car. That could be a natural cause because that's the world that we live in, where cancer rates are getting more and more, increasing more and more, and then, you know, people driving around, you know, may get hit. So it's hard to say. I think it has to do from the perspective of the person, if they are, what kind of rejection that they have. So you could essentially die in some way, but it depends on how you, what sort of things have you rejected in your life that you have not faced. That's what we have to look at. Okay, our next question here comes from Raymond. It's very hot here. Very, very warm. Okay, do you believe karma and sin is similar in practice? Is that similarity due to the ecosphere of coming to terms with the ultimate truth? Karma and sin, yes. Karma is essentially what you give is what you project is what you get. And that's something that a lot of people understand and a lot of people receive. If you give negativity, you receive negativity. If you give positivity, you give positivity. But that's not always the case. That doesn't always happen with everyone. It may happen with a majority of people, but for everyone, you could give and give and give and give and not get anything back. You could constantly have people taking advantage of you. This could be some sort of deep-rooted problem, maybe. Something deep down that may be causing this. Or it could be something else entirely. Entirely, some kind of fluke of this way of living that we have perceived. So, in a way, yes, karma and sin, I mean, it's essentially like practically the same thing. If you sin and sin and sin and you think something bad is going to happen, you're going to get something bad in return. And, you know, karma is very easy to explain as well, because if you're doing good deeds for people, I mean, people are going to be happy with that, and they're going to think, okay, maybe I should do the same with them. Maybe I should help other people. Maybe I should help this person. So if you're doing bad to people, they're going to want to take revenge on you sometimes. So you give, what you give is what you get. Okay, again, I do apologize if I am not able to get all of your questions answered. So are a lot. There really are a lot. I have about another little more than 5 minutes, so thank you for the questions. I think this is like the most questions that I have than any other time, but yeah. Okay. Alright, so let's see what we got. Alright, here's a good question from Rad's Chowki. Alright. Do you feel God has more to do with people needing a way to fight their personal fears, or other times seek rewards via God like other pain reward system? Yes, I do very much believe that. I think God is a way we can explain something that we may not have an answer to. You know, science, people very much rely on science like a religion. Science is some people's God, essentially. And what we must remember is science and God is from human observation. Humans are not perfect. So, science will never be perfect. Science is never always right, nor is what we have created as what we think is God. So, from our perspective, if we, you know, looking at this God that many religions have, who is the one that essentially discovered this or created this? It's human beings. Human beings have created all of this. So, human beings then have this perception of what God is, and we can believe it or deny it, but ultimately we have to have our own beliefs about what we think is true. Whatever we think is true for us. So I'd say don't blindly follow a religion, but just believe whatever you want to believe. If you believe there's, for some people, they follow strongly this of a particular religion, and it ends up blinding them from the truth, because it ends up making them believe things that they may not want to believe. They may want to question certain things, but they're not allowed to question because that's part of the religion. Ultimately, you have to do what you feel you should do. Oh wow, did we just get, let's see. A bunch more just came in there, so yeah. Okay, we are nearing the end here, so I'm only going to take a handful more questions. So RTT1961 asks, what's up with free will? Free will is an illusion that we have within our mind that we can make a choice between right and wrong, essentially, is what it is. I made the wrong choice. I made the right choice, to give us a sense of choice, of free will, to make us think that there is a free will. But ultimately, people who believe in this myth that is a free will, it's essentially, I've heard people say, you know, free will. I mean, if you became aware of free will and you decided to go against that, that would be you made a separate choice and you broke free will. But what if that's what's destined from you to do that? You're destined to become aware that free will is this illusion and you're going against it, breaking this free will is made up. So yeah, I mean, all of our choices that we make are all based on previous experience and based on what we think is right and wrong to give us that choice. Every single one of us. We cannot break free from that because that is what our human ego is about. To give us this sense of choice so we don't understand what's beyond good and evil, good, bad. Choices. Yeah. Okay, I think I'm going to answer one more question here. Let's see. So, the people who believe in God start to suffer in this world. Yes, indeed. We all have to suffer in some way. We all suffer, we all live, we all die. God will not save you from that, and humans will not save you from that. So, very thankful for all your support here. I'm glad that you all could come. Next question I see, I will answer it. Let's see. There is quite a bit here, so if it's a long one, I'll answer a short question. How about that? I'll answer one more short question. Short as in, you write it shortly, but I could answer it long. Who knows? Let's see. All right. Well, I see here. I don't believe in spirits, existence after death. Sulfuric acid says. Yes, I see. Yeah, there was a question. I think some article that I read that will be linked in my next video about that there could be some kind of proof of after-death experience. Okay, I think we should end it with this last question here from Joanne. Now, this will give you a hint. This may be off topic, but it's going to give you a hint. So, what's your ideas on BPD? BPD is bipolar personality. No, I'm sorry, not bipolar. Borderline personality disorder. Well, borderline personality disorder is a mental disorder. But let's see. Obviously, there's so much more that goes on than just the mind, the brain, the physical body. So we will dive much more into mental disorders from a more non-physical perspective in an upcoming video. So be on the lookout for that. I'll be making that soon. So yes. So sorry, I couldn't really give you quite a detailed answer right now, but you know how it is. I like to make your way through. I'm very happy that you all could come here to this live stream. I'm very glad for your support and sharing this information. And please share it with whomever else you think could benefit from this information. Be sure to tune in. I think it's next Friday. I think I'm releasing part 2 of The Meaning of Life on YouTube. If you subscribe to my email newsletter on my website, automasvidal.com/newsletter, you will get part 2 of The Meaning of Life on Monday. And if you support me on Patreon or the YouTube sponsor button, then you can get it. You could have gotten it already. It's already there, essentially, if you support me on those. And I'm very thankful for your support. There is one other piece of information that I want to share with all of you, and that is at the end of the month, I will be revealing something very special that I've been working very hard on. This thing, it will allow you to, let's just say, perhaps purchase some products from me and maybe wear them, and you know, that's all the hints that I'll give you for right now, but that should be enough of a hint. So yes, very thankful you all could come, and I'm very thankful for that. Got a question here from Joanne. When is your next live stream? Well, part 2 will be released next week on YouTube. But as I said, if you follow me on my website, on my newsletter, you'll get part 2 on you will be notified on my newsletter when I live stream. So I do certainly recommend that over YouTube or Facebook or Twitter, because they are very unreliable. If you have email and you use that, and as long as it doesn't go to spam, you should be getting my emails when I live stream. But next week will be part 2, and the week after that will be the live stream, essentially. So it'll be, I think it'll be early August will be the live stream. So, okay. So, thank you all so very much for the positivity, and I will see you all again very soon. And please feel free to support me and follow my newsletter and do whatever else you would like to do, because I'm very thankful for your support. So, thank you very much. I will talk with you all again later. Goodbye, everyone. Goodbye.